Hello students, welcome to our second video of class 8 history, our past 3, chapter 4, tribal, DIKUS and the vision of a golden age. In our previous video, we have seen how the tribals lived and how the colonial rule affected tribal lives. In this chapter, we will see what happened to the shifting cultivators, the problem with trade, and various tribal revolts. So let us begin. Let us see what happened to shifting cultivators. The British were uncomfortable with groups who moved about and did not have a fixed home. They wanted tribal groups to settle down and become peasant cultivators. Settled peasants were easier to control and administer than people who were always on the move. The British also wanted a regular revenue sources for the state, so they introduced land settlements. That is, they measured the land, defined the rights of each individual to that land, and fixed the revenue demands for the state. Some peasants were declared landowners, others as tenants. A tenant is a person who occupies land or property rented from a landlord. The tenants were to pay rent to the landowner, who in turn paid revenue to the state. The British effort to settle jhum cultivators was not very successful. Settle plough cultivation is not easy in areas where water is scarce and the soil is dry. In fact, jhum cultivators who took to plough cultivation often suffered, since their fields did not produce good yields. So the jhum cultivators in northeast India insisted on continuing with their traditional practice. Facing widespread protest, the British had to ultimately allow them the right to carry on shifting cultivation in some parts of the forest. But once the British stopped the tribal people from living inside forests, they faced problems. From where would the forest department get its labor-cut trees for railway sleepers and to transport logs? Colonial officials came up with a solution. They decided that they would give jhum cultivators small patches of land in the forest and allow them to cultivate this on the condition that those who lived in the villages would have to provide labor to the forest department and look after the forest. So in many regions, the forest department established forest villages to ensure a regular supply of cheap labor. Many tribal groups reacted against the colonial forest laws. They disobeyed the new rules, continued with practices that were declared illegal, and at times rose in open rebellion. We'll further discuss about the different rebellions of the tribals. Now let us see the problem that the tribals faced with trade. During the 19th century, tribal groups found that traders and moneylenders were coming into the forest more often, wanting to buy forest produce, offering cash loans, and asking them to work for wages. It took tribal groups some time to understand the consequences of what was happening. Let us consider the case of the silk growers in the 18th century. Indian silk was in demand in European markets. The fine quality of Indian silk was highly valued and exports from India increased rapidly. As the market expanded, East India Company officials tried to encourage silk production to meet the growing demand. Hazaribagh in present-day Jharkhand was an area where the Santals reared cocoons. The traders dealing in silk sent in their agents who gave loans to the tribal people and collected the cocoons. The growers were paid Rs 3 to Rs 4 for 1,000 cocoons. These were then exported to Burdwan or Gaya, where they were sold at 5 times the price. The middlemen, so-called because they arranged deals between the exporters and silk growers, made huge profits. The silk growers earned very little. Understandably, many tribal groups saw the market and the traders as their main enemies. The plight of the tribals who had to go far away from their homes in search of work was even worse. From the late 19th century, tea plantations started coming up and mining became an important industry. Tribals were recruited in large numbers to work in the tea plantations of Assam and the coal mines of Jharkhand. They were recruited through contractors who paid them miserably low wages and prevented them from returning home. Because of this extreme exploitation, the tribals rose in revolt against the British rule. About 70 tribal rebellions took place between 1747 and 1947. We will discuss some of the most important revolts among them. The Coles rebelled in 1831-32. There was an important rebel led by the Santals, which was known as the Santhal Rebellion in 1855. The Santhal Rebellion was led by two brothers, Kanu and Sidhu. Earlier in the 1780s, Tilka Machi had led a revolt which was soon repressed by the British. One of the most famous rebellions of the tribal was the Munda Rebellion. The rebellion under the leadership of Birsa Munda in the region of south of Ranchi between 1895 and 1900 was the most famous tribal rebellion of this period. Birsa Munda was born in 1870 in a poor family of Mundas that lived in the Chota Nagpur region. In his childhood, he had heard tales of the Munda uprising of the past. He had also heard of a golden age when the Mundas were free from the oppression of DIKUS. It was his dream that a time would come when the ancestral rights of their community will be restored to them. At school, he had heard that it was possible for the Mundas to regain their lost rights and re-establish the kingdom of heaven. All this deeply influenced his young and growing mind. This is called Munda Rebellion or the Ulugan. Its main aim was to reform the tribal society and establish Munda Raj by driving out the British. There were popular legends about Birsa Munda that he had divine and miraculous powers. He could cure all diseases and multiply grains. He declared that Lord had sent him to save his people from trouble and free them from the slavery of outsiders. Soon, thousands started believing that he was Bhagwan or God and had appeared to solve all their problems. They became his followers. Birsa Munda rebelled against land grabbing by non-tribals and protested against the exploitation of intermediaries like zamindars and moneylenders. Although he belonged to the Munda group that lived in Chota Nagpur, other tribals of the region such as the Santals and the Orons also joined him. All of them were unhappy in one way or another with the changes the British rule brought about. As the movement spread, Birsa Munda urged his followers to re-establish their glorious past. He wanted that people should once again own their land, settle down at one place, and cultivate their fields. However, what worried the British officials most was the political aim of the Birsa movement, because they wanted to drive out missionaries, moneylenders, Hindu landlords, and the colonial government and set up a Munda Raj with Birsa at its head. As the movement spread, the British officials decided to suppress it. The police ultimately defeated the rebels, captured Birsa in 1895 and convicted him on charges of rioting and jailed him for 2 years. After his release in 1897, Birsa again began touring villages with a view to gather support. He used traditional symbols and language to rule the Adivasis. He urged them to destroy the Ravana, that is DIKUS, and all the Europeans and establish a kingdom under his leadership. These people attacked police stations and churches and inflicted losses to the property of moneylenders and zamindars. Birsa Munda finally died of cholera in 1900. Some of the Mundas were hanged, whereas others were transported to a distant land as a punishment. Although the movement faded out with Birsa's death, it was significant from two viewpoints. It forced the colonial government to introduce laws so that the lands of the tribals could not be easily taken over by DIKUS. Now, DIKUS is a tribal term depicting all the evil outsiders like moneylenders, traders, Christian missionaries, Hindu landlords, and the Britishers. It showed once again that the tribal people had the capacity to protest against the injustice and express their anger against colonial rule. Let us rewind what we have learned. British effort to settle shifting cultivators wasn't very successful. Tribals believed that the DIKUS, or evil outsiders, were the reason behind their miseries. Many tribal revolts took place in the 19th and 20th century. Let us see what you have grasped today. Here are some questions for you. Your question number 1 is, the political aim of the Birsa movement was to drive away, and your options are A. the moneylenders, B. missionaries, C. Hindu landlords and the government, or D. all of the above. The correct answer is D. all of the above. Your next question is, the Bastar rebellion broke out in central India in the year, and the options are A. 1910, B. 1855, C. 1857, or D. 1947. The correct answer is A. 1910. Your next question is, Who rebelled against the colonial rule in the year 1855? And the options are A. Mundas, B. Khasis, C. Santals, or D. Gonds. And the correct answer is C. Santals. It's practice time now, and here is some homework for you. Your first question is, what problems did shifting cultivators face under the British rule? Your second question is, what was Birsa's vision of a golden age? Why do you think such a vision appealed to the people of the region? And your third question is, how was the Birsa movement significant? In our next video, we'll go to our next chapter, that is When People Rebel, 1857 and after. Till then, take care of yourself, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.